Welcome to the Healing Heart Podcast, where all healing is always a matter of the heart. I'm your host, Donna Campbell, also known as the Mind Whisperer, interviewing guest experts on all matters of healing. Welcome back here to the Healing Heart Podcast, and I am your host, Donna Campbell. And today I have a very amazing guest with me. He's been a friend for the last several years, a business advisor to me, and helps me in all areas of my life, especially when I'm seeking some of my own personal information. The services and teachings that Jason Antalek provides support others through their transformation of choice and through his intuitive abilities, his authentic experience, and the Akashic Records. Jason enthusiastically delivers thoughtful and fresh perspectives while assisting students, working with clients, or speaking. His focus is on awareness, followed with practical next steps. And what I have to say is his ability to go in and look at and read the Akashic Records for anybody, so you know what is coming, how to align with your life purpose, your soul purpose, relationships, and your own business has been truly priceless, because I know for me, every single time it's a life-changing experience. So everyone here who's listening, let's just give a warm welcome to Jason Antalek. Welcome to the show.
Donna, thanks so much for the invitation and including me in your journey for the podcast today. I'm excited to chat and share with you.
I'm excited that you're here because the Akashic Records is something that I'm always fascinated with. And just for the volume of information, the wisdom that can come from it, and the experiences that you can create and transform lives. But you didn't start just going, oh, I know how to read Akashic Records. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got involved in reading the records. And part two to that is, for those of you who don't know what an Akashic Record is, share with us what that is for you.
Well, if I can answer the first part, because that's really direct. The Akashic Records is the journey of the soul. So a personal Akashic Record is what your soul has done since the very beginning of its creation, whether it's been in or out of lifetimes. And the information that's available there can be impactful because it helps us understand why we do what we do, sometimes at the deepest levels, sometimes in the cycles that we're experiencing. I got into reading the Akashic Records in a form of recovery from a pretty severe concussion. And I got to that place where medical science said, hey, it's going to take time. And that didn't really work for me because then that's all I have. So I asked a lot of questions, and my metaphysical interest eventually led me back to the Akashic Records. And I found a modality that really worked for me, that was very structured. And I'm fortunate enough now to be a facilitator and teach that modality. And it was impactful in my life in such a way that I was healing and I was able to help others, and eventually turned into a whole different career, which was what I honestly needed at the time, whether I realized that or not. So in all ways, the Akashic Records has been the foundational aspect of what I do. And that has evolved considerably, thankfully, because that means I've moved along. But it's the ringside seat I get to see that for others that really keeps me going.
So when you talk about the Akashic Records, you said it's really the journey of the soul. Mm-hmm. Will you share a little bit more about that, what that means? What does a soul journey look like?
Sure. In my understanding and experience, it's kind of the soul asks a question, right? The energy is asked, who am I? What am I? And poof, there's a soul. And it's kind of this little ball of energy. And that variation is nearly infinite of what those combinations of energies can be. Mm-hmm. And understanding what our dominant traits are from the very beginning, those are the things that drive our choices. Those are our purpose. Those are the things we cannot let go of, right? And what motivates us, what helps us in our manifestation, all of those things. And then the soul continues to make choices, and those include learning, lessons, travel, but they also include incarnations. So we have lifetimes. So while we're right now in a lifetime, the other lifetimes become very relevant suddenly. And it's also an incredible source of information about why we're in the patterns and the loops that we find ourselves trapped in. And it's also interpreted correctly, usually the way out.
Wow. So that's a lot right there, because when I'm thinking about it, it's like, what is the soul? What are the patterns? What's happening? And why does things repeat or not come into fruition? Which reminds me a little bit about how our subconscious works. But yet this goes even deeper, because it's things that we've learned from lifetime to lifetime, maybe in between lifetimes, different incarnations. So can you share a little bit about how the soul progresses through life, transforming, but also using all of its prior life's lessons?
Well, as we know, let's talk about the elephant that I just saw there, is that we come into this life without those lessons.
Right.
And why is that? Well, to answer that question, in my understanding, is it wouldn't be as useful. If we knew all the stuff, we would just do all the right things. And that's not the same commitment we're making here. We're choosing, from my perspective, and a lot of other folks do, we choose to be here. So, there's some trust that we can have in our soul in that, and that what we've been born into actually challenges and supports our ability to really shine. And we run into trials and issues that are out of our control. And that happens in multiple lifetimes. What we have through all of them is our soul and our soul's experience. And that builds. It's sort of like when we pick up a new thing, a new hobby or something, and it really resonates and it clicks and we're just good at it right away. And it feels like very natural. Right? And oftentimes that relates to lots of things in our lives. And it can sometimes be traced back to previous incarnations and experience in those areas. As we expand spiritually and start to ask questions of who we are, some of those things start popping up, and it's kind of neat. But at the same time, there's things available that point to why we've chosen the way we have. And that is the process that creates the disruptions and the things that are in our way, the thought patterns, the attachments, the contracts we make, the karma we create, and how that rolls over from one to another. And in our present lifetime, we can benefit from that information because we can see what didn't work, and then apply that once again at the point of choice. We're in a 3D world. So it really requires that we pay attention to our choices. And that's where I find a lot of people get stuck. We can get a lot of philosophies and perspectives, but until we've embodied that through choice, then we're not actually creating full change at the level of our human existence. And that's really what we're looking for. But we have a lot of human stuff in the way as well.
Right. We totally do.
Yeah.
We totally do. We totally do. And now I know I have met other people that read Akashic Records or say they took a course and do readings. But I know when we met, I knew it was different because you were doing something a little bit different in the Akashic Record readings. And what I've learned is it's not just one set of readings. There are many different ways to look at and read the Akashic Records. And even looking at my own journey with you reading my records, I know we did like a basic soul overview of what I'm here to learn and all of that. I had you do a reading with me in context of a relationship with another person to see what some of those obstacles are. We've looked at things for my business and how I run my business and what my Akashic Records say about that. And then we have also looked at, I remember taking a course and doing some things and a reading with, who are the spirit guides and how are they really here to help you? So there's many different ways of looking at the Akashic Records. So can you share with us what's involved in some of the different readings that you do, and what are some of the different ways people benefit from receiving those results from the reading?
That's an amazing question, and thank you for displaying the Swiss Army knife that is
right.
my basic
There's a
modality.
lot, and I'm so excited.
It is exciting, and that's one of the reasons I get so enthusiastic about it, because it really a good modality can apply in different areas and create the opportunity for results that are impactful and long lasting. And it also, to me, empowers people with their own information, right? So an understanding means that when you can deal with what's in front of you, but more stuff's going to come up. And if you've dealt with other stuff well, then that stuff's going to be not necessarily easier, but you're more prepared. Even just that is enough. So the many different phases, as you're saying, are so true. And people find me usually when they're stuck in some sense, whether that's in a relationship, in business, for themselves, or they're really in the mode of transformation and getting kind of overwhelmed with all of the possibilities, not knowing where to focus because there's so many, like you're saying, so many things. Yes. Understanding ourselves at a soul level is always my first contact point when I'm doing readings and working with clients, because that information comes from the soul's beginning, and it's always been there. The other pieces along the journey that are influences energetically are also identifiable, that it's really about the interpretation of those things. Because even if two people have the same makeup, maybe very similar soul paths and energies, doesn't necessarily translate to interpreting it the same way. Mm-hmm. So someone that does manifestation one way, somebody else with the same energy might do it differently. And usually that's actually the case. It's most likely that way. But the ability to hone in on what is in the way and what is the point of choice and getting a roadmap, that's really what it's about. So whether it's in the relationship and understanding what the triggers are and how to approach those, what sort of mindset or perspective to apply when that happens. We've all been in a clearing and dealt with the stuff coming up, right? And we feel good we've gotten past some of those aspects. And then it's about embodying the new perspective through choice, through application. And those are two kind of different steps. And so understanding our situation and getting a hold of it and getting some clear stuff out of the way makes it easier to apply those choices that work for us, the roadmap. And the information interpreted through the records allows for our human mind to get an explanation, right? Something to grab onto, to understand, and allow ourselves to answer some of our internal questions so that we can take on some new possibilities. I like to say, try on new perspectives, right? Mm-hmm. And you can put the jacket on and you go, I don't really like that one. Let me try this one. Ooh, there's the one. So it comes down to choice and asking ourselves the right questions. And that's what the Akashic Records as a basis provides, is the information to be interpreted and applied to do that.
Wow. Truly, truly amazing here. Everybody, you are listening to the Healing Heart podcast. My guest today is Jason Antalek, and we're talking about the Akashic Records. We're going to take our quick sponsor break, and we'll be back in just a moment. Get what you always wanted. Abundant life is possible. Transform your lifestyle in just weeks with the most innovative system developed for heart-centered business professionals who seek change today. You are one step away from creating infinite prosperity, happiness, and love. Grab your bonus link now that's in the show notes. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Healing Heart podcast. And my guest today is Jason Antalek, and we have been talking about the Akashic Records, the different ways of looking at the Akashic Records, different types of readings, the soul journey. Now, of course, the Healing Heart podcast, all healing is always a matter of the heart. So when we look at the Akashic Records, Jason, and we look at the different types of readings that we can do, when the client or the person understands what obstacles they have, what they need to overcome, what would be some typical results from having a reading?
Oh, thank you. You asked again, so I can see the benefits again.
Yes.
The first part of that is understanding ourselves and what's already in front of us from a fresh angle. I like it's kind of like we drive down the street in the driver's seat every day, our own street, right, or driveway. But if you were sitting in the back seat on the passenger side, you'd have a different perspective. But you don't always ride there, right? But somebody else in that seat can point those kinds of things out. And when we can see what's already in front of us in a different way, it helps us get some room to operate. That's how I like to say that. And if you've ever been kind of jammed in that little emotional box, right, and then you kind of get out of it and feel a little relaxed, you know what I mean about room to operate. And we find ourselves in that box and everything's bouncing around in all kinds of directions. This allows us an opportunity to step back a little bit. And that room lets us look at things in a less emotionally impactful way, especially if we're talking about past life circumstances, right? And those things that roll over, right? Because we're not attached to it, but we can look at it and go, yeah, I'd have probably done that. And that choice has shown up in my present life. So that's probably where I could pay attention. And there's the benefit really is it's so focused. Right? You go, here's the energetic statement of these blockages. Here's what the blockages mean. Those are the symptoms. But what we're truly doing is getting to the root problem. And so much of what we do, we treat symptoms. We're playing whack-a-mole all day long. And even as spiritually conscious individuals, that can get away from us. So when we're able to understand why we do that and embrace that in a new way, getting a look at what's in front of us is pretty easy. Clearing some of the stuff out of the way, right? That takes a little bit of work and some choices. We have to embody that, but that's the benefit is being able to do that with a roadmap, right? Clearly knowing what my applicable next steps are has been what's made it easier for me to continue. And so it's not just about starting, it's about applying and continuing to be able to do that and then referring to it when times are tough, right? That and unless you've embodied that understanding of yourself, to me, it's difficult when those things come up. We regress. We go back to our old ways, and sometimes we need that awareness. But what we're really trying to do is transform, and that happens at that point of choice.
Right. Absolutely. I'm really curious about this next part here because you would go through the reading, you uncover the obstacles and what they are. Now, as people, we're constantly creating. We cannot not create. In every moment, we're creating something, and there's always something going on. From your point of view, after doing this for, longer than I've known you, because you're truly a master of your craft here, what percentage or what amount do you think do we really create in this lifetime versus what we carry in on a soul level into this lifetime to learn and work through?
I've found that there's more kind of specifics as to what the energies are and what we're presented with to accomplish. What are those possibilities? But a lot of times that is covered in the trials and the traumas and the things we go through, especially early in life. Right. So it's a difficult question to answer specifically. I apologize for that stumble there, but it's a thoughtful question.
So one of the things for me is that because I work a lot on the subconscious side of things, and once you have the awareness, you can go in, shift, change the block. But I know for me personally, I've uncovered through our readings patterns that I didn't realize that I was learning, but from a soul level. And there's so many different ways of how we create, because some of it's in our day-to-day life, some of it comes from our genetics, some of it is through history, but then we have this whole soul aspect. And what I want our listeners to know and to understand is there is a lot of information within yourself energetically that comes and transfers over when you incarnate into this lifetime, that comes through the soul. And I think at times we kind of push that to the side because we don't look at it. We only look at the moment that we're in, or the present life, or this obstacle is happening, or that challenge comes into my life, or I feel that way. So I think we need to share a little bit greater emphasis on what is our soul really doing? What is it really learning? And how do we really create with it?
Got it. Thank you. That was immensely helpful, and it helps me answer in a better way. I appreciate that. The soul energy that I spoke about is the constant common denominator, and it's always an influence, but we're also interpreting it in a physical sense. So we have our collective experience here, the things that we've agreed to. The sun's going to go across the sky, gravity exists, we need oxygen, right? These things are real. But there's the other part, like you're talking about, that carries along with us. What I find is that the soul level energy, which is the idea, the understanding from the beginning, and the soul group of origin really are very influential. And that's a lot of the roadmap in itself. And then when we come into this lifetime, we set ourselves up in a way that's advantageous. I find like a lot of astrology matches the same soul level information for someone's process. I mean, it's good information because it really exists. It's absolutely there. So people that identify with astrology or identify with their own energies usually even come up with their own similarities. So it's just obvious that it carries over. If we look a little deeper, it's also into the experiences. So if we've had trauma from past lives, we may be susceptible and even present in repeated versions of the same thing, whether they're bigger or smaller. One of the things you asked about was progression. So if someone was in a very, say, controlling, difficult relationship with someone 3 lives ago, where they called all the shots, and now they find they're in that same pattern, but they hate that kind of relationship, right? They just can't be in it. That would show a progression. You're no longer being, that's someone no longer being trapped or controlled. They've actually evolved within themselves and recognized within themselves something different, that they want something different. And that's where that application comes in, of the different possibilities from present and previous timelines. So what you're saying about it carrying over is absolutely true. It's about what carried over and how do we interpret it.
I love it. I absolutely love it there. So if people are out there listening, they want to get in touch with you, look at some of the different ways you read Akashic Records. I have to say my favorite one is on the business side because it guides me and coaches me through the business. Let me ask you before I ask the last set of questions here. Share with us how it looks for like a business owner or an entrepreneur who comes in for an Akashic record reading and wants to be in pure alignment with their business. What kinds of things, what part of that journey would they look for?
Well, through their permission, because it's how we get into a record and get good information. So love the integrity there that's built in. With their permission and their business information, we can actually read for both things. Once a business entity has been created, right, and there's been an exchange of value, then that has an Akashic record because it's had interactions. Just like our soul records all the interactions, so does that Akashic record there. And putting those together, we can look at someone's tendencies and their drives and match that with how they're showing up in their business in the specific areas of business. So you can very quickly see what's working and what's not, get an energetic sense of what's going on. And a lot of it is what, especially with entrepreneurs, they kind of already know, but getting the laser focus and going, here's where I can put my energy to make the biggest impact the fastest. And that allows it to be customized for that individual in business. And that's really necessary as entrepreneurs because we're all different. So the ability and to do that and see it for ourselves, and then be able to make choices that align with our intentions. That's the benefit of doing it through the business aspects. We can look right into services and marketing and employees, the whole thing, very easily, and the information can be utilized very quickly.
Right. And I absolutely love that. So for those of you that out there that are listening that want to get into touch with Jason, do an Akashic record reading, whether it's for yourself personally, maybe it's in that relationship realm or your business realm, which I know I'm already scheduled for, so I absolutely love it. How do we get in touch with you, Jason?
Through my website is the most direct route, and that is akashaman.com, akashaman.com. There's a Let's Talk button there right on the front page. I always find that it's great to have a conversation before we start scheduling things. It's about it being the right fit and understanding if what I do and the needs and wants of the client or student actually can be cohesive. And that conversation is what I look for first. I enjoy what I do. I love doing it. I love getting readings and doing them. But it's also about being very focused on what our intentions and our results are going to be. So I like to have that conversation. So that's what I would encourage folks to do. Schedule a conversation.
Perfect. Everybody just reach out to Jason. All of those links that he shared, how to connect with him, we're going to have that all in the show notes. So all you have to do is click and schedule. And definitely just go out there, have the experience. I know for me, it was total life-changing, life transformation, and opened up my eyes to things that I didn't see before to help me grow and truly magnify what I do in my business, which brought us all here to part of the Healing Heart podcast. So thank you, Jason, so much for being here and being my guest today.
Donna, thank you so much for allowing me to be here and share some of my philosophies and views and ask so many great questions. And thanks to everybody listening for allowing us to be part of your journey.
All right. And for everybody else out there listening, as always, go create a beautiful day.